Hail and welcome to another questionable reviewer today. I've just woke up. I'm having a brew in the garden because I'm just feeling some type of way today. And we're going to do a quick review of the Yearbook by Holly Bourne. I've been in a serious reading slump recently and nothing is getting me out of it. So when my mum brought this home, I was really hoping that it could, get me out of that. And as much as I enjoyed it, and I obviously finished it, I feel like I had to put just as much effort into this as any of the other books that I've been trying to read recently. So it didn't really come through for me on that point. Maybe that's because I'm a little bit too old for it now. The book centres around kids leaving high school, so it doesn't even count as a young adult novel. I think I'm just straight up reading a kid's book right now. But it was enjoyable, and there's always that. Oh, there's not enough sugar in that tea. Ugh. The basic plot of the Yearbook is this girl, Paige. She's drastically shy. She doesn't speak to anyone, and she only had one friend when she was younger, and that friend has now moved away. She gets roped into doing the yearbook at her school, even though she opposes everything that the popular girls do. And the popular girls are obviously the ones who are in charge of the yearbook, and they're doing everything they can to make the yearbook all about them and not necessarily about everyone in the year. So everyone in the year is just going to remember how awful these people were, and they're not going to have any actual memories of their actual school days. Meanwhile, at home, Paige is dealing with what can only be described as a narcissistic father who idolizes her older brother who's gone off to uni and who basically just completely ignores her unless she's directly in his path. I want to talk about Paige for a little bit because she is different to other Holly Bourne protagonists. I feel like usually Holly Bourne protagonists are quite brash and bold and outspoken, and even if they're kind of not like that, maybe like Evie from Am I Normal Yet, even when they are quiet, they're still on the inside an opinionated, strong feminist person, and I feel like Paige isn't like that. She's kind of naturally a more passive person than an active person, and it was just interesting for me to read a protagonist of Bourne's that was like that. It was kind of reminiscent of the character in her second adult novel, Pretending. She was a little bit more timid and reserved than the other women that Bourne likes to write. For me, as someone who's just read all of her books, it's just interesting to see her branching out and exploring different characters and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to go and put some sugar in that. That is fucking grim. Much better. So just because I thought it was interesting that Paige was this quieter character does not mean that I prefer quieter and more passive protagonists to active ones. In fact, I don't. And so for me, the saving grace of this book and my favourite character was Elijah, the friend that Paige eventually meets. I have a lot of things to say about Elijah. He's a very good character, he's a good friend, and he is a good love interest, which is what he inevitably turns out to be, and we'll get into that in a minute. The way that they meet is the best meet cute I have ever read in any book ever, and it is exactly the kind of meet cute that I have dreamed about having in my real life, and so it was really exciting for me reading about that. The intense adorableness of said meet cute almost makes my grump with the relationship meaningless. My grump with the relationship is that Paige doesn't have any friends at all, apart from maybe the school librarian, who is an adult. And so when she meets Elijah, that's the only friend she has, and when they end up together, I personally, being an adult, am afraid of what will happen when they split up. Will Paige just not have any friends after that? I understand she goes to college at the end of the book and she'll probably meet new friends there, but as a person who's very shy and reserved and not used to making friends, it's very possible for her to just be entirely reliant on this relationship with Elijah. And as much as Elijah's a nice guy, not every relationship works out, and especially not teenage relationships. And Holly Bourne knows this. And actually, I remember complaining about there not being very many happy endings with the relationships in teenage Holly Bourne books. And now there has been a happy ending, and I'm upset because I wanted them to be friends. So maybe you just can't please me. Meet cute, though. The perfect meet cute is that Paige obviously goes to the library a lot, and she takes books out of the school library, and she notices that there is a lot of annotations from a red pen, and they all seem to be the same person, and they write similar things and they think similar things in the margins, and she leaves them a note, and remarkably the person with the red pen is still in her school, and that person turns out to be Elijah, and they end up meeting after sending some messages through books. And you know, it's each other's favorite books as well, which is like the cutest thing I've ever read in my entire life. So yeah, the 10 out of 10 fantasy of the meet cute balances out the gripe with them ending up together at the end, because how could you meet like that as a book lover and not fall in love with the person, you know? I'm going to talk about Holly Bourne writing abuse for a moment, because there is something so poignant about the way she does it. I don't know whether it's because she dealt with a lot of that in her job or whether she's had an experience herself. She's got this way of writing the subtle abuse that you're not really sure about, and I feel like it's something that's very hard to convey in a story without the reader completely missing it. Obviously it helps that we're reading from the point of view of the victim, etc, etc, but I just think that any story she writes about an abusive / abused person, something that should be read by abused people, because they always help immensely. And I think that in this one, it was, I don't know whether this was done on purpose, but the narcissism of the dad was like immediately paralleled by the like sneaky bitchy way that the popular girls in the school would like underhandedly run everything. I think that her courage in standing up to her dad gave her the courage to stand up to these girls who kind of manipulated her in the same way, right? There's also an important message in this book about how sometimes people can't be there for us and support us, even if we want them to be. In this particular case, unfortunately, it was Paige's parents, but it applies to everyone in your life. People have their own shit going on, people aren't capable, blah blah blah. Sometimes we have to be the person who is there for us, and sometimes we don't have any other option. Yeah, it was only a quick one today, but I just wanted to get it out of the way because I know it is a new release, and I thought it would be nice to just share my thoughts on it, considering it is the only book I have actually read to completion recently. So yeah, that's all for today. I'm going to finish my brew, and I'm probably going to go back to bed. So I shall see you next time.